Most of my professional career has been in the area of corporate communications and public relations. And essentially that's how I got started on this adventure. Just a few years ago, when I was running my public relations firm, I was doing some work for a major hospital network here in Colorado and discovered that there was one hospital that had an extraordinary emotional support program for children whose parents had cancer, and they were helping the kids cope with their anxiety, their fears, their despair, and so forth. They were working with kids 6 to 16. And it occurred to me that this was exactly the kind of program that would have been very helpful to my parents 18 years earlier when their mom was diagnosed with terminal cancer. My kids were 11 and 15 at the time, and no one suggested a support program for my kids. And it occurred to me that there really ought to be hundreds and hundreds of support programs like this. And that led to the development of an initial book titled Helping Your Children Cope with Your Cancer, a guide for parents and families, which came out in the market in 2001. And then ultimately we started a nonprofit organization to encourage cancer hospitals across the country to start emotional support programs. And so for kids, and the program is called C.L.I.M.B, C.L.I.M.B. It's an acronym for Children's Lives Include Moments of Bravery. And we continue to develop materials that will support that program. C.L.I.M.B is essentially a 6-week-long emotional support program for children, generally from about 4 to 11, but it can be expanded on either end. And we help kids deal with the anger, sadness, despair, and very significantly help them improve their communications with mom and dad, and to facilitate communication between the kids and the parents, so the kids no longer feel that they are alone. And the activities take place usually in the cancer hospital. It's surrounded by art activities and journaling and so forth. And usually there are half a dozen or a dozen kids all participating in this program. And they begin to see that, gosh, they're not the only kid in school who's dealing with this kind of problem. And they actually consider the C.L.I.M.B program their own private little club, and they really look forward to coming to it every single week. And if there's any sadness, the sadness comes at the very end, when they discover that the 6 weeks has come to an end and they aren't necessarily going to see the kids anymore. But it provides a wonderful emotional support program for the kids. Parents report that the kids are much less stressed, much more communicative, much more easily, it's much easier for them to discuss the cancer with them. Well, the reason we wrote this book is because while we are reaching a fair amount of children through C.L.I.M.B, there are hundreds of thousands of children who are not immediately available to participate in the C.L.I.M.B program, just because their hospitals haven't launched the program yet. Actually, there are approximately 315,000 parents, 25 to 54, who this year will be diagnosed with invasive cancer, and they have nearly 600,000 children under the age of 18 who have to deal with their anxiety and their fear and their anguish about cancer. So most of the activities that we cover in the C.L.I.M.B program are capsulized right here in these books, both in Spanish and English, called Talking with My Treehouse Friends About Cancer. So even if the children are not participating in a C.L.I.M B program at a local hospital, they can sit down with their moms and dads and grandparents and actually participate in these very same activities of making masks and coloring their, doing all kinds of cutouts and journalism. And so it just broadens the market and will help many, we hope, hundreds of thousands of kids who need that kind of support. You know, we all know that there is a huge Hispanic market in the United States. We deal with one hospital in Pueblo, Colorado, and we know that 40% of their patients are Spanish. And so it's really important that we reach out to serve that underserved market. And this will just make it so much easier for Hispanic families. And in many cultures, it is not normal for parents to talk openly with their children about infirmities and the like. But nevertheless, the children are equally upset, disturbed, anxious, and wondering what's going to happen. What happens to me if Dad dies? Is it my fault Mom got cancer? Because I misbehaved, because I was bad? And it's really important that those questions be lovingly addressed in both English and Spanish. We've gotten wonderful feedback from participants in C.L.I.M.B. Many parents have said that the program was actually a lifesaver. They just didn't know what they were going to say to their children. They didn't know how to talk with them. The kids were distraught and angry and very sad. And now, again, it was a lifesaver. The kids, we won't say ebullient, but they're a lot happier. They're much more open. They're much more communicative. And it's really been a lifesaver. Kids have said we've made great friends, made wonderful friends, and at MD Anderson in Houston, Texas, they say we feel that we've got our own special place at MD Anderson. So it's really has just been a wonderful experience for the kids.